iPhone 15 Pro Max versus iPhone 16 Pro Max. What are all the differences you can expect? Drop a like down below, subscribe to the channel, let's talk about it. So, these are the two most recent iPhones that Apple has released. The iPhone 15 Pro Max came out in 2023 and is actually very revolutionizing, while the iPhone 16 Pro Max came out in 2024. And according to most tech reviewers, it was a very small upgrade. So, what are the differences between these two phones? For starters, the design is pretty much the same. The iPhone 15 Pro Max and the iPhone 16 Pro Max feature the same exact design. The same materials, almost the same weight, and pretty much the same exact feeling in the hand. So, the iPhone 15 Pro Max features the contoured edges that Apple created from the iPhone 14 Pro Max, and it carries over to the iPhone 16 Pro Max. This makes the iPhone super comfortable in the hand. So, if you hold these two iPhones, you cannot tell the difference. Again, the colors are also the same. The iPhone 16 Pro Max also has the natural titanium color available. If I've bought the same color between these two phones, it's almost impossible to distinguish between these two devices. The only thing you can notice right now is the fact that the iPhone 16 Pro Max is a bit bigger than the iPhone 15 Pro Max. It has a 6.9-inch display, while the iPhone 15 Pro Max has a 6.7, which, if you put them side by side, you can actually notice that the iPhone 16 Pro Max is a tiny bit taller and a tiny bit wider. But you cannot tell the difference in day-to-day use. Again, I've always told you guys, but the iPhone 16 Pro Max newer display, the 6.9-inch bigger display, it's barely noticeable in day-to-day life. And so, the difference in size is also barely noticeable. At the end of the day, having the Pro Max phone means you have the biggest iPhone available. And this year, you have the biggest ever. So, in terms of design changes, in terms of hardware feeling, it's pretty much the same weight, the same feeling in the hand. So, if you have the iPhone 15 Pro Max, there's definitely nothing new going for the iPhone 16 Pro Max. If you are considering buying one of these two phones, well, the big changes come in the hardware available. And what do I mean by this? Pretty simple. The iPhone 16 Pro Max now features the camera button. Yes, the camera button. This is a hardware button that the iPhone 15 Pro Max does not have that allows you to control your camera. So Apple likes to call it camera control, but it's not more than a camera button. This is a button that allows you to click to open up the camera app, allows you to lightly tap it to open up the camera settings, slightly push it to the side, left, right, to change the settings, zoom in, zoom out, and in the future will allow you to focus your camera. So imagine a camera shutter or a normal DSLR. This is now present on the iPhone 16 Pro Max. So in terms of changes of hardware, pretty much it. It's the camera button. So if you think this is useful for you, which in my opinion, after 1.5 months of use of the iPhone 16 Pro Max is not more than a gimmick, then go for the 16 Pro Max. But if you do believe that this is a big gimmick, you don't really care about it, and you don't want to waste your money on it, then the 15 Pro Max is still available and is still a beast of a phone. So yes, the biggest change between these two phones, definitely the camera button. Because obviously, the iPhone 15 Pro Max also features the action button, which has been a surprise since I've switched to the iPhone 16 Pro Max. Before, this was not available. On the iPhone 15 Pro Max, on iOS 17 to be more precise, there was no option to turn on ChatGPT as this button. But currently, I can do it. And so, the iOS 18 update was actually a bigger update for the action button than when it was released on the iPhone 15 Pro Max. So I do believe, currently, the action button is more useful than the camera button, at least for me. Because I can have AI on the tip of my fingers, which, if you don't know, I live in the EU, and Apple Intelligence is not available here. As for the rest, the USB-C port is the same, the speakers pretty much the same, the titanium frame the same, the weight distribution, everything looks the same between these two phones. One thing that is not the same in terms of size, but it's pretty much the same in terms of everything else, is the display. This is a 6.9-inch display, OLED 120Hz, 2000 nits of peak brightness. This is a 2000 nits OLED display, 120 Hz, 6.7 inches. So, literally, the only difference between these two displays is a 0.2 inch difference in size. Which, if you think about it, who cares about 0.2 inches, right? So, if you are deciding between these two phones, keep in mind, you are paying extra $200 to $300 for a 0.1 inch increment on the display and a camera button. A big gimmick. So, is it worth it? Well, if you put them side by side, you can literally tell that these displays are the same. I cannot notice any difference between these two displays. Maybe because the bezels on the 16 Pro Max are a bit smaller, that you can actually distinguish between these two phones from the front. But if you don't have a keen eye, not even that will be noticeable. Again, these displays are the same. The only difference, this one has smaller bezels and a bit bigger screen size. Other than that, same display, same design. It's kind of a running theme right here. One thing that has changed between the iPhone 15 and 16 Pro Max is the charging speeds. Now the iPhone 16 Pro Max charges faster and has a bigger battery, which in turn means that the iPhone 16 Pro Max has a better battery life than the iPhone 15 Pro Max when it was new. So if you compare these two phones with brand new batteries, you'll have around 5 to 10% better battery life on the iPhone 16 Pro Max, which is an improvement, but again, would you pay more? $300 more just for that? I don't know. It's a small iteration. Because of the A18 Pro chip now being more efficient, the iPhone 16 Pro Max still has and will have better battery life than the iPhone 15 Pro Max. It also charges faster via MagSafe, but via USB-C is almost pretty much the same. So again, charging speeds, battery life, small changes, small improvements, pretty much small iterations. If you live outside of the EU, both of these phones feature Apple Intelligence. Unlike other iPhone 15s, the iPhone 15 Pro and the iPhone 15 Pro Max do feature Apple Intelligence. So if you're worried about that, don't be. Both devices perform pretty much the same. When playing games, when performing through the OS, when opening up social media, when exporting video, these devices do perform pretty much the same. The A17 Pro here is super powerful, does feature ray tracing, while the iPhone 16 Pro Max with its A18 Pro also features ray tracing. Both phones can play AAA game titles. If you are a gamer, don't worry, both devices can do it. In terms of battery life, the iPhone 16 Pro Max, when playing games, lasts for a bit longer than the iPhone 15 Pro Max, but it's a residual difference. Oh, one thing you can notice, and when playing games you actually care about it, is cooling. The iPhone 16 Pro Max does have a bit better cooling than the iPhone 15 Pro Max. Apple changed some things up inside and they improved it, which is a good thing. The display doesn't dim as much as the iPhone 15 Pro Max and doesn't get as hot. Before, the 15 Pro Max did get a bit hot. Now it has been almost fixed. I say almost because there's still some room for improvement. And then of course, there are some changes that I consider so small that they don't even deserve its own category. Wi-Fi 6E, Wi-Fi 7 on the iPhone 16 Pro Max, so a newer generation of Wi-Fi. You also have newer generation of ceramic shield for the display, so in theory should be more resistant to breaking and scratching. If it's true, don't test it, I haven't, and I can tell you. Other than that, pretty much the same. These phones are really similar, guys. Again, these are almost the same device. Don't upgrade between the iPhone 15 Pro Max and the iPhone 16 Pro Max. Guys, don't even upgrade between two different generations of iPhones that are consecutive. So if Apple launches the iPhone 14 and next year you decide to buy the iPhone 15 and next year you decide to buy the iPhone 16, all the changes will be so small that you won't notice them. And then you will feel like upgrading your device is worthless. You don't enjoy your phone, you think that you are wasting your money, and guys, don't do it. Trust me. A better cycle to upgrade will be 3 in 3 years, 4 in 4 years, then you will always take the most out of your iPhone. Of course, if you decide to buy an iPhone and then sell it, and then buy another one, and then sell it, and then buy another one, it will be around the same cost as buying one each 5 years. But if you decide to upgrade less often, what will happen is you will feel that the difference is bigger. You feel that the upgrade was bigger and worthy of the upgrade. But if you decide to upgrade every single year, what will happen is you will become bored. You will become actually mad on Apple because Apple is not upgrading the iPhone enough. But Apple is not making the newest iPhone for you, the one that upgrades every single year. They don't. They are thinking, oh, okay, the iPhone 16 Pro Max is now an improvement over the iPhone 12 Pro Max or even the iPhone 13 Pro Max. If you compare that phone to the older iPhones, which I did, there are some videos on my channel, you will see that the differences are much, much bigger. So the big thing is don't upgrade every year. It's not worth it. As you've seen on this video, the differences are so small between these two devices that why would you? Why would you waste your money? Why would you waste your time? Why? Why would you care about upgrading every single year to have a slightly different iPhone, which is not even better every single year? I'm not sure. I don't know. Most people like to upgrade because they want to, because they can. But I don't see the point to. I do it because I'm a YouTuber. This is my job. I need to review every single device every year. And for me, it's not even fun. Sometimes it's not even fun. This year, I haven't felt like it was worth it. I haven't felt like it was so fun, so exciting. I haven't. This year, I feel the same. I've used to use the iPhone 15 Pro Max for 1 year straight. Loved it. An incredible device. Very powerful. The cameras were incredible. They can almost replace my DSLR camera. And since I bought the iPhone 16 Pro Max, I've used it. What did I thought about it? What was my experience? Pretty much the same. I haven't noticed the difference. I forgot I upgraded my phone. The camera button was such a gimmick, again, such a gimmick that I don't really care about it. I don't use it. And so, the upgrade was completely worthless. Of course, if you are coming from an iPhone 13 Pro, 12 Pro, 11 Pro, whatever, you will feel that the upgrade is big. And you will be saying, what are you saying? The iPhone 16 Pro Max is an amazing phone? And it is. But if you come from the iPhone 15 Pro Max, guys, it's not worth it. You will definitely tell that the iPhone 15 Pro Max, the 16 Pro Max, they are the same phone. Almost the same phone. One thing you do really need to care about is, of course, if you are buying these phones right now. If you want to watch this video because you are deciding between these two phones, in that case, well, the 15 Pro Max does not have the camera button, has an older Wi-Fi chip, has an older A17 Pro, which I think will have one less year of upgrades, still 7 to 8 years, but one less year of upgrades, won't have the camera button like I told you, and now we need to talk about the cameras, which is probably the most important part of a comparison video between these two iPhones, but in this case, it's kind of strange. Let me tell you why. For starters, the iPhone 15 Pro Max and 16 Pro Max, they share the same main sensor, the same 48 megapixel main sensor. If you take a photo with this phone and then with this phone, you won't notice any difference in detail, sharpness and quality. The only things you will notice between the main sensors here is the A17 Pro versus the A18 Pro images processing. So it might be a bit different, might be a bit better on the iPhone 16 Pro Max, but the differences are so small that you can almost tell if you don't have a trained eye. Then of course, the other lenses, the iPhone 15 Pro Max does have a 12 megapixel ultra-wide and a 5x telephoto that is also 12 megapixel, while the iPhone 16 Pro Max does have the same 5x telephoto, completely the same lens, so these phones share 2 out of the 3 lenses, but then the 16 Pro Max does have a better ultra-wide camera. It's a 40 megapixel ultra-wide camera, while the iPhone 15 Pro Max is a 12 megapixel. Do I notice any difference? Sometimes. At night, you have a bit better light exposure, a bigger sensor, so it gives you better low-light photos. During the day, gives you more sharper photos. So, can they compete with the main sensor? No, they can't. They are still far from being the same quality as the main sensor. And that was my biggest request whenever Apple launches a new iPhone, is can you pair up the ultra-wide sensor with the main sensor, so whenever I want to use the main sensor, whenever I want to use the ultra-wide sensor, I don't have to decide between a worst quality camera and a better quality camera. At the end of the day, there are still a huge gap between these two lenses. So a 40 megapixel ultra-wide lens on the 16 Pro Max, it's better, definitely, than the 12 megapixel on the 15 Pro Max, but is it that much better to consider upgrading? No, it isn't. And so, let me know in the comments down below what you think. Do you think it's worth it paying extra for the iPhone 16 Pro Max, or go for the cheaper iPhone 15 Pro Max? Don't forget to drop a like down below, subscribe to the channel, bye bye.